This is on the French fold, and what I have are two pieces of paper, identical fold idea where the seam at the top is either way, it doesn't matter. But when you take this and segment it off, just to show you a little bit of the proportion, so that if you were to do something as a smaller piece, I just take this triangle and set it across here, and I folded it as accurate as I can. It goes from corner to corner and creates this diagonal. So this is a quarter sheet of paper. This is 8.5 by 11 for the bottom one when you open it up. And this one started off as the page size that you see right now, 4.25 by 5.5, and folds up into that size. Point being is if you work something as a thumbnail sketch like this, drawing or sculpted paper, and you want to make it bigger, then it kind of fits right into here, or you just have to recreate and cut the page to fit. But since this is standard size paper, this makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to demonstrate like this. Now when you saw this section here, this carved and cut to make that angle for that shape. And if you didn't have the that page, you just have the paper without the drawing and think of what could you make out of that. And then that's where your ideas start to germinate from there. So when you take a look at this page, I'm just going to open this up and I just want to make two cuts. So I'll just sketch it on here first just to show it to you. So it's going to be a symmetrical cut, and I'm just going to go even just to keep it simple on there. But I have to do this, I have to open it up, find this edge, just as a piece of scrap paper. So I'm just going to take it and cut it here and here. And the idea now is that this part's going to be the opposite fold. As long as I can get that crease and then fold this up together. Takes a little finagling around to get that paper out of there. So that's the point. And as long as I can see this, and let's see it from the camera, and fold this enough to get that paper just to come out and ultimately make that crease right there. So now I have what they say, just this box type shape within there. And with paper or clay, here's the clay from before. The interesting thing a couple artists say is as soon as you have clay or paper, it's that much easier than drawing, because right out of the box, the clay, for example, has color, texture, it has lighting, so all the shading is already there, and it has the form or the volume. Similar a little bit to the paper. You've taken a flat piece of paper, and now it's at an angle, so it's in dimension, and now I've broken it up the space a little bit further. Haven't really drawn anything with pencil. The illusion is not there. You're just making it reality right as you start to work with it. So that's the beginning part. This is just a little thumbnail sketch. I'll just show it to you as I came across. Just a folded piece of paper. I didn't have it big enough. It's just a Post-it. But I wanted to see what would happen with these different pieces coming across. So I've added some. This is actually a shape on a shape. You know, box on a box shape right at the top. Point this up with the pencil. And then this one's off to the edge, so it has the edge piece blocked in there. This one, I cut at an angle, so it gives a little different angle to it. So all these different cuts, if you have never, messed around with this type of sculpting paper or folding it, is going to give you a little more of a trick to work with. Okay? So then I just took a piece. This is actually a receipt, I think. I'm not sure what it is, from a tire company. So this one's a little bit larger, so this is the size paper that you guys have now. So I'll just pop this up a little bit. You can see it a little bit easier. So you can see it has the texture of the paper. Now I could have gone and tried to find a blank piece, couldn't find it, so I just used this paper. The nice thing about it is that it gives me a texture that I didn't anticipate. The type is kind of small. It gives you a little bit of a look to it. It's almost like I drew on it ahead of time. And here I add a little pink paper to see what would happen if I bridged across a shape. Could I make that into anything? When I open it this direction, if I can hold it still long enough, let me go this way, since the seam's at the top. It almost looks like the top view of a city, or this way, depending on which direction you work with it, you have that to anticipate. So what I'd like you to take a look at is to at least get to yourself to one of these, and like I said, if you want to, I have a small piece of paper. I kind of like to just mess around with it just to get the see what the cut would look like rather than get something that's close to being finished and then make the wrong cut. But here, like if this was a building or something like that, this would have this little piece right at the top, right at the top. Anything that I would do beyond that, say I wanted to shade this, for example, I could just simply put some pencil on there and give that a little bit more dimension, even though it already is. But if it had a pattern or a texture or symbols, whatever it happened to be, that would give you that option to make something. And depending on which direction, whether it became like a mannequin, a robot, or whatever you can imagine it to be, looking at that, what I'd like you to do one, at least just make one shape. At least do that part. That gives you that shape. And if you can think of anything, you're pretty creative with the last batch that you did, so I leave it up to you to just give yourself a quick understanding of the cut. And if you need any of the scissors, like I said, I have that. But one last thing is to just show you this. There are a ton of these around when you start to look for them. Here's a card design. So when you take a look at the amount of time I've had you draw a certain animal over and again, this is the practice of it. When you take a look, this has a little glitter, which kind of sprinkles off on everything, but everything has glitter, the parts printed on there. This card has a little bit of both. You can kind of see the thickness to it. It's folded over, and when you open this up, this becomes a pop-up card. And pretty elaborate, and when you think of the connection, construction, and application, let alone they have to print more than one of these, you can see it becomes a pretty big process. The other thing to notice is that all this stuff is a die cut, meaning it's cut with what they call a metal die that has that shape. These pieces are scored and bent over to fit in. There's tabs on some of these to hold it in there. And some of these parts are actually glued within the card. So it's not necessarily a card like this of one piece of paper. It has attachments to it that make it even more elaborate. But as far as the selection going all the way across, it's pretty impressive. And then there's just a little tab to hold it open, like a little kickstand right there, so you can set it there and look at it. So all the cardboard engineering, so it's not overly, it's difficult, but when you take a look at it here, they're just creating the thickness of the stock, the card stock, in order for it to fold, to stay closed, everything that comes up. There's sound cards, there's all kinds of things that are out there, but just try to give you that connection. Okay? So see if you can pull together just at least that one piece and creating something out of it, of your own imagination. It's whatever the theme is, but it's something on the pop-up card concept.